Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. My goodness, folks, we made it. It is week one. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. The NFL season officially gets underway tonight. So while we sadly say goodbye to draft season and talking about best ball and doing all these deep dive teams, it's time to put the rubber to the road. It's time to see how sharp our takes actually were. We're going to see how everything that we talked about and spent hours thinking and researching about over the summer, see how off or on we were with it as it all turns out. So if you're listening to us, our podcast schedule is totally jam-packed with football goodness throughout the week. The episode with Mario and I every single Thursday is going to be just kind of our general breakdown of the slate. We're going to run through every single game as expeditiously as we can, getting you like the information, the opinions that you need to know going in. And that's going to be it. We're going to try to cover as much ground as we can, as quickly as we can. That's going to be kind of the motto of the
big
show.
Policy change there. Being fast part.
Yeah, we always say it. We never will be fast, so don't worry. This will still we will still ramble, but
It will take too long.
We got to have a mission statement, as it were. But if you're listening to us live over on YouTube, also if you got questions about your lineup setting, always happy to answer those. But try to be as succinct as you can. If you throw me a paragraph, I'm probably not going to read it. I can't read that well, let alone talk and read at the same time. Good Lord, forget about it. All right, so Mario, let's rock and roll here. Thursday night game, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles open their title defense against the Dallas Cowboys. This line has moved from 7.5 to 8.5 at some shops. It's still hanging out. At Bet Rivers, it's at 8 right now. So I think that with the line being opening at 7.5, a pretty strong statement from the get-go that that this should be the Eagles' game to win. But the Micah Parsons trade kind of adds fuel to that. Hence the line movement a bit here. Over under set at 47.5. So, what is your big thing to focus on when it comes to fantasy for this game?
I guess the Cowboys' run game projects poorly against the Eagles' run defense, and so even without many pass catchers, without much depth for pass catchers, Dallas might have to throw the ball a lot, both because we expect them to fall behind and because it's like even if they try to run the ball, it's probably not going anywhere. It is good for Dallas that Tyler Guyton appears to be all ready to go. And I think at that second corner rep on the boundary and then even like Sidney Brown at safety, those are two question marks for the Eagles. So maybe George Pickens gets going. You expect CeeDee Lamb to get going no matter what the Eagles try to do to slow him. But if the Eagles are trying to stop, or if they're going to great lengths to slow CeeDee Lamb, then Pickens against that non-Kenyon Mitchell corner would be pretty good. But the Eagles also mentioned the possibility of having Kenyon Mitchell travel with opposing receivers this year. So if the Cowboys have Lamb in the slot, for instance, Pickens might actually get Mitchell. So it's going to be, I think, a little bit tough sledding for Dallas, maybe some turnovers, the usual dysfunction. But I like Dak Prescott's chances of throwing 40 passes, maybe getting to 300 yards.
I do too. I think the back door's open for this game. Like I do think that the Cowboys can kind of make this one look closer than it actually was. But I think if the Eagles, if they play their game, that they win this one rather convincingly. Yeah. Whether it is by the 2 scores or not, that will be kind of dictated by how much Dallas keeps its foot on the gas there in the fourth quarter. At least we think so. But these season openers can always be a little bit froggy. We saw a couple of years ago with that Lions-Chiefs game. No one thought that the Chiefs could possibly lose that game to Dan Campbell and company, but obviously they did. So crazy things have happened. Divisional games stuff can happen as well. I think for fantasy, I do want to see. I think the Eagles just kind of run it back from last year, but I think on the Cowboys end, it will be different with George Pickens being in there. So I'm excited to see what his usage looks like. And even though I don't think that this is a particularly high ceiling backfield, no matter what, I do want to see what the workload breakdown kind of shakes out to be. Is it Javonte up top? Yeah. How much is Miles Sanders mixing in? The rookie Jaden Blue, is he a factor? early on in the season or not. So those are kind of like the big things I'm looking out for on the Cowboys side of things. But ultimately, Eagles win. Cowboys, I like them with the points. Let's get on over to the Friday game. We got the Chiefs and the Chargers. That one kicking off at 8 Eastern. We got the Chargers checking in as 3.5-point underdogs in this one. Not overly surprising, but what are we looking at here? The big news, I think, out of LA this week with Najee Harris potentially being available.
Yeah, the Harris thing doesn't change a whole lot for me. Not even really with as far as Omarion Hampton goes. Like I think Hampton's too good to put on the bench in competitive situations, but in situations where it's a throwaway drive or it's running out the clock, those situations I could see Harris playing. I just don't think that would really affect the tilt of the game here. I kind of like the Chargers upset here, let alone the cover. I just don't think the Chiefs are even in theory supposed to be that good if they don't have Rashee Rice, and their wide receiver depth is a bit thin. They're going to be leaning on. I think Hollywood Brown can be good, but I think it's always bad when you're leaning on Juju Smith-Schuster, and it looks like he's going to play a lot in this game. So I don't think the Chiefs are owed this level of deference. I think the Chargers have shown they're a pretty serious team in their own right, and I guess I'll take them to win.
I like that call. I like the upset call.
It's not Arrowhead,
Exactly. I think that definitely means something. Do you think that? I guess the thing I'm trying to circle with when it comes to the Chargers beyond, how much of an annoyance Najee is for your Omarion Hampton investments, but how does this receiver room kind of shake out beyond Ladd McConkey, in your opinion?
Well, it sounds like Keenan Allen might play some flanker reps, but I'm skeptical that will work. I don't think it could work outside of like 3rd and 4 type situations. Like, I guess Keenan Allen can make it 4 yards. Any more than that, you're pushing your luck. So what the Chargers try to do with Allen could very well be different from what they are kind of like the results might be bad despite them trying, and this would be a high stakes way to learn that you shouldn't use a 34-year-old 4'8", 40 receiver on the boundary. So I'm hoping Trey Harris or somebody, I guess Quentin Johnson, can step up a little bit, but it is tough to tell where that wide receiver room is. Keandre Lambert-Smith, I assume, is the clear fifth, despite the general promising tone around him. Rondé Gadsden was getting some amount of hype, not hype, I guess, but like Daniel Popper is a really good beat writer, was mentioning that he seems somewhat involved in the offense. So I'm not really expecting anyone other than Ladd to pop up as a viable fantasy option in this game. I guess if someone did, it would be one of the tight ends, just because the bar is lower at tight end. But I think it's mostly going to be a Hampton heavy kind of game, and maybe Ladd.
Yes, I think so as well. And then just kind of zooming out, the Chiefs were really, I think the Eagles had them like dead to rights, all game in the Super Bowl. But I do want to see what they did this offseason as far as the offensive line goes. How much different and how much better potentially that unit looks on the Kansas City side. I think that's going to be kind of an important thing for them, because it was such like an obvious like undoing for them on Super Bowl Sunday. Got a couple of good questions here quickly for you, Mario. Better stash in your redraft leagues: Woody Marks, Roschon Johnson, or Taj Brooks? I feel like in Brooks's case, I love the guy, but I think it's the Chase Brown show until the wheels fall off. So like you might just be kind of holding that for a while. I think in Marks's case, I see immediate passing down work potentially. So I think that he's really in play. And Roschon, I mean, it's only seemingly DeAndre Swift in front of him, but I don't know if he'd gotten cleared off of that foot thing on the official injury reports or whatever. So a little worried about that. I've drafted a lot of Roschon because I just don't think that Swift is someone that can handle full 3-down work all season long. But your thoughts there?
I'm kind of a Roschon hater, so I'm probably not the person to ask. I think Woody Marks is the one. If you need flex utility out of this pickup, I think Marks is the closest to that if it's PPR. But I would take Brooks just because, I mean, I think the upside with him, even if it takes Brown missing time, if Brown misses time, Taj Brooks is a top 10 fantasy back, in my opinion. So I would go with Brooks if you can spare the bench spot for a while.
Yeah, so I think it's for your roster, it's a balance of can you do like the contingent upside where you're taking zeros in the meantime, or do you need like a warm body?
Yeah.
And I think in week one, I think the contingent upside that definitely makes some sense. Once we get into buys and once we get into some players getting injured, maybe you do kind of need the more stable floor of like a Woody Marks type. But we shall see. But I think that's how I draw it up. And then our guy Bradford wants to know: would you start Ridley or Matthew Golden? I think we have Ridley ranked 7 spots ahead of him. We have Ridley as like a high wide receiver 3, Golden more of like a low wide receiver 3. I think that's about right. I know that it's a tougher matchup for Ridley, and as a rookie quarterback to work with against the Broncos. Golden, a rookie in his own right against the Lions. I think I still lean Ridley just a bit.
Yeah, especially if it's floor that you're looking for. I think Tennessee is probably going to trail early. Ridley's probably going to get double-digit targets, so he can have a bad game in real life and still come through as a PPR floor play, even if the efficiency is awful. But I don't think there's anything wrong with going with Golden. It would be nice to know ahead of time what LaFleur is going to do with his snap count distribution, because if I recommended Golden to you and Malik Heath is out there on the second drive, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, I think that you and most of the state of Wisconsin, I think I do feel better generally about Golden since he changed the number. He changed the number though. Like if he really was 22 coming into the year, I would have been a bit worried.
Desmond Howard type of vibe, if so, yeah.
Yep, 0 much faster, much cooler number for a wide receiver. Next game, we got the Raiders and the Patriots. A couple of great coaches in new spots here with Pete Carroll taking over in Vegas. This game in New England.
And Chip Kelly. That's the other great coach you were implying, I think.
That is correct. I do love Chip, even though he went to Ohio State last year, but besides the point. And the Patriots, 2.5-point favorites at home, about the boilerplate standard home favorite line there. What are we thinking here?
I'm worried that the clock in this game could burn up quickly. I think both offenses are kind of, for varying reasons, they're kind of committed to establishing the run. And in the case of the Raiders, their defense is lacking talent so badly at corner. I think they need to slow games down and try to basically up the luck factor. Because if the longer the sample gets, the sooner those corners get exposed. And Malcolm Kuntz and Max Crosby could be a difficult pass rush for the Patriots. Like I'd like to believe the Patriots offensive line will be fixed more or less, but they have a lot to prove in the meantime. Those two edge rushers are going to stress them quite a bit. So makes sense for the Patriots to try to hide from that edge rush a little bit. Certainly makes sense for the Patriots to try to tire out Crosby and Kuntz by running at them a little bit before they open up the offense. So I can see both teams logging, I don't know, like no more than 60 snaps. And so despite the bad defense of the Raiders case, I'm not really getting my hopes up for a huge fantasy day from the Patriots offense, even though I do have a lot of hope in general for them. And I'll take the Patriots to win.
I think that's fair. I mean, Vegas is very much in on this Patriots team. I think their over under is like 8.5 for this
that's
year.
All schedule, right? Like I think they might be pretty good, but like we don't even know if Christian Gonzalez is going to play in this game, and that's a pretty big player to miss.
No question about that. I think on the fantasy end, I did feel like Stephon Diggs was kind of always a value if he was going to be able to be ready to go week 1 throughout draft season. Looks like he's off the injury report, so I'm looking for him to have a nice kind of debut.
He should be solid
there for New England, and Trevion Henderson. I think he's a really kind of nice RB2 play this week. At Genty, of course, if you drafted him, you're rolling him right out there right away. Any like other kind of receiver corner matchups that may concern you, or vice versa? Like say Gonzalez is out, does that change your opinion on how strong you are in like a Jacoby Myers this week?
It can't hurt Myers. It depends, I guess, on how the Patriots respond. Like the strategy they use to account for Gonzalez's absence would have something to do with it, because they could try to double Myers. Like they might even try to double Myers more because the next guy is not Christian Gonzalez, and that guy needs more help than Christian Gonzalez. So it's not as simple as it definitely makes it better for Myers, but it makes it better for Geno Smith. And I think at the game enough snaps pass, the quarterback having a good game will make Myers have a good moment at least eventually. So I think you don't worry about Myers too much, even if Gonzalez is in the game, just because Myers has shown he's going to draw targets at a pretty high pace. And even with Amari Cooper there, I don't think he's really. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should take Cooper more. I definitely take Cooper more seriously than like Keenan Allen at this point. But it just seems like Jacoby Myers is a tough guy to like push out of place, and Dante Thornton, Trey Tucker are there for their decoy roles. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper doesn't play a whole lot in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a quick turnaround. I think is the only reason why I would be like kind of worried about Cooper this week, but I do think ultimately, he takes on, there's a reason, there's
Later
an
on,
intentionality to them making that move that late in the offseason. I think they wanted to give Jack Besh and Dante Thornton like as much runway as they could, and it's like we got to have like this, a stabilizing veteran here in 21-year-old Amari Cooper. That's a joke. Anyway, looking forward to that game, though. I think that's a sneaky good one. I think that those are two teams that kind of starting from the bottom this year, but
I think Stevenson is flex viable.
Okay, good call. Like that one as well. Before we get on over to our next game, we do have a quick question from our guy Kyle Seibert. He has Josh Allen. Should you double stack up and go with Keon and Khalil Shakir, or roll with Jacoby Myers or Ollie Gordon? I think I'm starting Shakir as long as he's good to go.
I'm going Shakir and Myers. The Keon detail is tempting, and if you go with Keon and Shakir, I wouldn't criticize it because you're in with Josh Allen anyway. Like if Josh Allen has a bad game, you're kind of in trouble anyway. But I think Shakir and Myers is a really nice floor, a good way to start the year.
Yeah, definitely. And just I'd say be patient on the Ollie Gordon front. Like be excited that you have access to that ticket. Yeah, certainly hold on. But week one you're asking a lot. I think for him to be like a great start right out of the gate. It would take some pretty serious cojones to roll him out there, I think, in week one. Before we get on over to our next game, we got a message from our pals over at Fantasy Sports Knockout. Fantasy Sports Knockout, where a fantasy league meets a knockout pool, an innovative take on fantasy football. The concept is simple. Choose a new fantasy lineup each week and score points the same way you would in any fantasy league, but you must choose your players wisely. You can only use each player one time. The lowest weekly score or group of scores is eliminated from the contest every week. The concept may be simple, but survival is not. How will you play? Are you going to load up early or play the matchups and save the better players for later? Fantasy Sports Knockout. Can you survive the fantasy? Sign up at play.fantasysportsknockout.com today. Also got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And look at that. Next game. Steelers, Jets. Jets just
it's over. It's already over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Elijah Vera Tucker thing is, to be serious, it is a big setback. And I was on the fence about which team to pick in this one, but with the Vera Tucker news, it's like this Jets team, they are not prepared to sprint. They're going to have to play slow at best. And not that I take Aaron Rodgers being any good for granted, and I have some concerns about the overall approach of the Steelers. I think the Jets are unfortunately just probably not very good of a team at the moment, A, and B, losing a guy like Vera Tucker is particularly bad when you're about to play the Steelers. So it's like couldn't really be worse timing.
Yeah, especially with it coming, it came down like Wednesday morning that Vera Tucker had suffered this injury. So, I mean,
he's always tearing arm tendons and stuff. It's so frustrating, but yeah, he's a really good player when he's on the field. So Cam Hayward, I'm not assuming it's an easy game for Justin Fields. I'm thinking this could be fewer than 14 points kind of Jets offense.
And we get the kind of Bizarro or Spider-Man meme situation at quarterback with these two guys, flip-flopping
trading
sides.
Bad quarterbacks as they both waste another year.
Lovely. Let's see. I think any like kind of fringe starters that we need to discuss here. Like, what would you roll out? Guys like Jalen Warren in this matchup, or
Generally, especially if it's full PPR. Like, I'm not expecting the Steelers to light it up exactly. If Warren has a good game, sure, a short yardage touchdown would be great. But I'm more so banking on 5 check down passes in PPR scoring, that kind of thing. But I do think Jalen Warren is fine. I don't know what to do with Caleb Johnson, but I'm also biased there. It's like I didn't want him, and so I might be prone to underestimating him. But if you paid the Caleb Johnson price, I feel like it's kind of difficult for how most teams budgeted to keep him out of the lineup. But it does. I do think the Jets defense is going to be tough. They might get gassed in the second half, but I think Aaron Glenn will at least get the Jets defense to show up. So I expect both offenses to be low scoring.
yeah, that we're looking at an over under here at 37.5, which I have to imagine is the lowest that we're going to see on the board this week. Yes, indeed it is. Look at that. So yeah,
Lower than the
this
Cardinals
one.
Saints. Wow, that's bad.
So that goes to show. But yeah, 37.5 is your number over at FanDuel. BetMGM expecting more of a shootout at 38.5. Speaking of like actual offensive fireworks here, Bucks, Falcons. We're looking at 47.5. I know that both of these teams have kind of had some unfortunate late in the offseason injuries in the ramp up to this game. I think a lot of people are worried about on the Falcons side, the McGarry injury and what's that going to do, not only for Michael Penix and the pass pro, but also, Bijan and getting some cleaner run lanes, because McGarry, I think, is pretty widely regarded as not just like their best offensive lineman, but like, one of the better run blocking offensive linemen in the game. So losing him for the season, I think, is a big deal. But correct me if tell me what you think here, but I kind of like the Falcons as home dogs here. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of not that high on either team. I am very much worried about the McGarry thing. I almost wonder if the Falcons just move Jake Matthews to the right side, being Penix's blind side. But yeah, Tristan Wirfs presumably out for the Buccaneers, and even though the Falcons don't have much pass rush, or not an established one anyway, I just feel like the Buccaneers were very clearly at their best possible outcome for most of last year. I thought their schedule was really implausibly easy. Everything was just kind of falling the way they wanted it to. Usually when it feels that way with a team, it doesn't last forever. And when you add complications like the Wirfs injury, I feel like the lower case outcomes become very easily plausible. And I think week one is also like liable to just kind of get wacky in general. So I don't think the Falcons are any good, but I do agree. I don't even know why I'm picking them to win this game, or at least cover this game, but I am. I just it's more that I just think the Buccaneers are due to regress pretty harshly.
And adding on, Tristan Wirfs, we've known about that injury for a bit now, and it's concerning. That's going to be a problem for them for like the opening month of the season, we think. According to Greg Auman, who's one of the best, if not the best, Bucks beat reporters, I just went ahead and looked this up as of 3 minutes ago of our recording. Still no Vita Vea at Bucks practice either.
That's bad too, of course, because when they have Vita Vea, just Vita Vea, they have an above average run defense.
Yeah.
When they don't have Vita Vea, every bet accordingly is off. And like Greg Gaines, I see as the backup. He's pretty scrappy, but I think he's better as like an off the bench type. I don't like Logan Hall. Kalijah Cansey is good, but he's just a gap shooter. He doesn't really hold up lanes. So this Tampa Bay run defense if Vita Vea is not in there, this run defense could struggle. And Bijan Robinson is a bad player to have to manage if in that state.
Yeah, no, I think that Bijan said I'm going to have
big Bijan game. I think I can say that.
And I noticed, I know that this isn't our DFS podcast, but Drake London's like under 7K on DraftKings. I feel like it's going to be target city for him.
Probably a cash game fixture. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm liking this game for DFS purposes. And then, of course, we'll be excited to see what the Emeka Buka debut looks like in a dome. Yeah, I'm excited.
Even though I'm concerned about the Buccaneers winning, Ibuka, Evans, etc., Irving, they should all be good.
Indeed. We do have an interesting question that I think kind of is an important one because we all kind of get a little bit best ball brained over the summer. We get a little bit stack happy. So our guy Ghoul, or guy or gal Ghoul, wants to know in a half PPR start nine format where you're starting, your usual uh, quarterback, three receivers, two running backs, and two flexes. Um, is it overexposure to the Niners if you're rolling out Purdy, Kittle, McCaffrey, and Pearsall? I think yes in redraft. I think that's hard to go with all four in redraft. Like I thought,
Yeah.
when we talked about it over the summer that the Niners were really, really stackable, particularly on underdog. But I can't do it in redraft. Like
I wish I
consciously
knew
setting that lineup.
I wish I knew the quarterback alternative, especially, but also the wide receiver alternative. Kittle and McCaffrey, I am starting for sure, no matter how overexposed it might be to the 49ers offense. But I expect that game to be a little bit lower scoring than we're accustomed from the 49ers. I just think the Seattle defense is good enough with the 49ers to being shorthanded as they are. I think it's a little bit challenging for Purdy, perhaps, and maybe Pearsall. But if you have to start those four, I wouldn't really worry about it. It's Purdy, especially, that I'm like, I think you might be able to do better there. But I'm still high on Pearsall, so I'm not going to say like bench Pearsall if you also are starting McCaffrey and Kittle. It's a good player, so you could be in a worse situation.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a team total like 22.5. Looks like for the Niners, which is
Stinky.
like you said, a little bit on the lower side. So I think Pearsall is the guy that I moved to the bench at least for now. But that's not to say that I'm not very optimistic about Pearsall. I think he's one of my most drafted receivers in best ball this year. But redraft, a little bit different call when you're setting your lineup with four guys from the same team, especially when it's not a total cupcake matchup, with this one being on the road against a divisional opponent. All right, Dolphins, Colts. Two teams that if not for the Jets, kind of like holding up the L of the offseason, I feel like Indianapolis, this has been a bit of a soap opera, and Miami has tried to make this the real house husbands of Miami type of stuff down there as well. It's been ridiculous, I'd say, for the most part, the way the Dolphins have functioned this offseason, and especially as we've gotten closer to the season. So how do we see this one shaking out, and what are you looking at for fantasy?
Well, the Dolphins are probably going to win because I picked the Colts as my best bet pick, the spread being 1 point favoring the Colts. I made the Colts spread cover my best bet of the week. To be serious, I do expect the Colts to win. I think losing this game will get in motion what I very much expect to be like a downward trajectory for McDaniel. I think McDaniel probably gets fired before November, and losing to a team that's not very good, the Colts, would be certainly getting that heat on McDaniel a little bit. And if I have to pick the Colts, even though I don't think they're particularly good, it's because I think the Dolphins' defense is trash, and Jonathan Taylor, like, I'm worried about the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson offense holding him back, but not against the Dolphins. I think not to jinx Jonathan Taylor either, but like he might be warranted in issuing like a Jamal Lewis kind of comment before this game, like, I will run for 250 yards today, because I think it might happen.
I kind of do too. He's another guy that looking at the DFS slate this week and looking at the matchups, it's just like it feels like the Dolphins are going to get flattened on the ground in this one in particular by Jonathan Taylor. So I'm locking in Jonathan Taylor like pretty much everywhere that I can in DFS, and then of course in season long where I have him.
John, I saw Jamie. Hey, Jamie, thanks for tuning in. Was asking before about ETN or Josh Downs, and that's a tough one. Those, I like both of them a lot. I think ETN is the ceiling play, Downs the floor play, but I love Downs. As long as Daniel Jones is out there, I think Downs can catch 10 passes. Doesn't matter who the defense is.
Yeah, no, I think that Daniel Jones being in, I think is going to just make Pittman and Downs just like these really super reliable guys every single week for fantasy.
Bad corners on that defense too.
There's nothing good about this Dolphins team, really. Charlene notes that she loves Ollie Gordon. I love Ollie Gordon too.
We're apologists of Ollie Gordon. Like I think we were lobbying. We think he fell too far in the draft. So I love Devon Achane too, but if Achane, if he needs to leave the game, I think Gordon can hold up.
Yeah, so pay attention to the practice reports. Devon Achane was limited on Wednesday. So if that's still the case come Friday, I think he's still playing, but you feel less great about like a big workload out of Achane, and all of a sudden, you can kind of talk yourself into a potentially flex viable workload for Ollie Gordon. I think it'd still be a little bit bold, but yeah, that's kind of where
we're more so holding on to Gordon in case he starts games later, which could it very easily could happen.
Big time. So appreciate that, Charlene. Anything else to add here before we move on to what could be argued as the highlight of this entire slate?
Yeah, as much as I think the Dolphins are bad and doomed and everything, Achane, Hill, Waddle, if you paid for them, start them is how I see it.
Yeah, fire away on that. I did feel like Waddle was just. I would have thought that he would have crept up into like late third, early fourth territory with the way things kind of felt with Tyreek
Hill. The
Westbrook
Akina offense. It's the Darren Waller offense.
Look, I'd never blame anyone for featuring old Nick Westbrook Akina, but yeah, I do just think that Jalen Waddle is objectively.
I like Waddle
extremely
to bounce
good.
back here.
Yeah. So I think this sets up nicely for him. I think anyone that grabbed him in like the 5th round is going to end up being pretty happy with the returns, even if the Dolphins otherwise a train wreck. All right, Cardinals, Saints. This one has jumped up in light of the Saints announcement that they are not starting Tyler Shuck. They are starting Spencer Rattler at home against the Cardinals. Cardinals 6.5-point favorites on the road now. Cardinals very trendy in Survivor. Everything like that. I mean, I don't know what to make of
not
this.
Not at New Orleans, man. I mean, the Saints are probably absolute garbage, but the Cardinals are pretty garbage themselves, in my opinion. And even if the Cardinals, I expect the Cardinals to win, but I am picking the Saints to cover. But even if the Cardinals win, their only model of offense that they can execute right now is one that runs out the clock quickly. So 2-score lead for the Cardinals, I don't know if that's going to happen like at all this year. Like they need like a defensive touchdown to make it happen, which Spencer Rattler, sure, could happen, but I don't think the Cardinals defense is that good. It's just kind of okay, and their offense is slow at best. So I think James Conner is set up good. Marvin Harrison, you're starting him if you paid for it. Trey McBride could catch God knows how many passes for 0 touchdowns apparently. But on the Saints side, you're hoping for just kind of garbage production, I think, from Kamara, Olave, Shaheed. They're all good, worth starting, but it's just kind of driven by the usage, I think. And I'm not expecting the Saints to be particularly good, even if they cover. It's more just like both teams are bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, both teams are bad, and they should feel bad, as John Zoidberg, the good doctor, would say. Our guy KJ wants to know. Struggling with a tough start-sit decision between Devontae Adams going up against Stingley.
Oh, crap, is Gonzalez out?
or Gonzalez. I will verify the Gonzalez detail here while we talk, but your thoughts there between Devontae and Jacoby?
I have Devontae ranked higher, but that's not because I want to ever leave Myers on the bench. I want Myers in my starting lineup usually. But I'd still probably go with Adams because as much as I think Myers is good, Devontae Adams even last year was drawing targets at just an absurd rate. And I think he could get 10 targets pretty easily in this game. So, and you don't know for sure who he's going to run against. He might see some of that. He might see like Jalen Petrie a decent amount. He might see Kamari. Is it Kamari Lassiter?
Yep.
Yeah. So see a lot of Lassiter. Adams is fine. It's only like I don't want to leave a player as good as Myers on the bench, but I kind of have to, I think, in this case.
Yeah, between those two, I tend to agree. One more quick one before we finish off the Saints Cardinals. Would you start Keenan Allen or Rashid Shaheed? So like two very different like styles of potentially getting 8 fantasy points.
I love Shaheed as an aesthetic and as a concept, and I would, in my case, start Shaheed, but I can't tell if that's bad advice. It might be bad advice because even though I'm kind of low on Keenan Allen and his fit with the Chargers, it seems like the Chargers might kind of trot him out there anyway. And I guess if it's PPR, I'd say Allen.
Okay.
Is the responsible choice, perhaps.
I was about to say that's the responsible call there. But Spencer Rattler, I mean, dating back to college and I think the small sample last year, like he's not afraid to let it rip. And obviously
Chuck it.
that works against him a lot, but
they have nothing better to do. It's a hand it off to Kamara or chuck it to Olave or Shaheed. And I love Shaheed, but yeah, I guess Allen he's a PPR scammer. He's good at getting useless catches.
Really good. Really good. Uncle Ted wants to know our thoughts on Michael Wilson. I feel like
I like him, but he's in a bad offense and he's not in a role that suits him. So I have had no interest in Michael Wilson in fantasy. I think he if they had like Shamir DK on that third rep instead of Zay Jones, then it would have changed the entire equation. But instead they're putting Zay Jones and Greg Dortch out there. It's abysmal.
Yeah, it's just this is going to be not a great season for the Cardinals. If they don't, take care of business in this one, then man, that's going to be bad. They got to do it here, but I do kind of like the Saints at home with the points. I'm with you there. Let's hit Giants Commanders coming up next. We got the Commanders either 5.5 or 6.5 point favorites, depending on where you're looking. Let's see. I guess what would be I mean, obviously the Washington backfield. I think and I think to a lesser extent the Giants backfield also very interesting in this game.
Yeah, I think Cam Scatterbo needs some time to get into the game plan, so I'm not really expecting him to play much in this one. I can't tell what a fair expectation is for the Washington defense. Adding Marshawn Lattimore last year could give them a pretty vicious corner rotation, and they have a bunch of names that we recognize on defense, but I don't know. I don't know if the talent is that particularly notable, and I think Brian Dable is a good offensive. I know he's the head coach, but he's a really good offensive coordinator, play caller, whatever. And I think Washington needs to be careful here because I think Russell Wilson at least like won't turn the ball over, and if Washington leaves a deep shot of open, I think Wilson can still hit those, including to Darius Slayton. So like Malik Neighbors, of course, the first and second concern, but Darius Slayton has a way of really hitting you hard if you let him get a viable target, and I think Wilson can land those. So I could see Brian Dable making the game shorter by kind of sitting on the ball and running out the clock quickly and trying to make it come down to kind of a fluky, Darius Slayton long touchdown. We're up by 4 and there's, not much time left because we ran out the clock quickly. Like that's the kind of thing that I worry about for Washington, but Washington should be fine, especially if Terry McLaurin is ready to go. I'm a little bit worried about the Brandon Ayuk thing. Like, is he going to be a little bit rusty when he comes back? I don't know. But if McLaurin is McLaurin, then Washington should be fine. I don't know what to make of their running back usage. It seems like they're kind of hell-bent on making Krosky Merritt a meme. But if they give Chris Rodriguez the ball, that every time Rodriguez gets the ball, Krosky Merritt is closer to getting phased out, and I think maybe that's not what Cliff Kingsbury is trying to do, but they have to give Rodriguez the ball eventually, and he always rakes. So I'm staying away from the backfield because I don't have any idea where the usage is going.
Yeah, for redraft, I'm sitting put if I'm invested in any of these Washington guys, but DFS, I will say that Austin Eckler, I think works pretty well for as a cheap running back if you need to.
And PPR, I think in PPR scoring, Eckler could be like a flex play pretty much all year.
Okay, yeah, so that's an important detail, but the two kind of more like power early down backs between Rodriguez and JCM, like it's crazy, like how wild that cycle spun out of control and how quickly it all did, and then it's like then everyone just jumps ship on Krosky Merritt once he's listed 4th on unofficial depth chart, and then
I wouldn't make anything of the depth chart. Like it's we don't know what way it's going to go, but the depth chart doesn't it doesn't narrow the possibilities at all. It's just noise.
Yeah, exactly. Uncle Ted holding out for some optimism for Luke McCaffrey this year as well. So
I don't think so, Ted. Sorry,
I'm not either, but I respect it nonetheless. Panthers Jags, kind of an interesting one. The Jags, obviously, I feel like they've just been less than the sum of their parts, especially each of these last two seasons. I thought that things were really starting to come together in 22. They make it to the playoffs, they make it to the second round of the playoffs. It's like, okay, Trevor Lawrence is arriving, all this, and then things just go off the rails the last 2 years, as was extremely well documented by us. Christian Kirk is gone, but you have Brian Thomas, an emerging total alpha in this offense. You have Travis Hunter. I think he's kind of like the guy that we need to really center on for this particular conversation. Like what is kind of the latest you're reading when it comes to Hunter and what his snap breakdown is going to look like here, offense versus defense?
Yeah, people are making a lot of Hunter being listed as a starting receiver and backup corner on the Jags depth chart. And I don't doubt that Liam Cohen, being an offensive-minded coach, just sees Hunter as a toy for offense. But Liam Cohen might have to learn a harsh lesson this year about being a head coach and the job differing from his tasks as an offensive coordinator. This game, I don't think, will be the one where the Jaguars pay any penalty for featuring Hunter at receiver. But I don't know how much they need him at receiver, even in this game. De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington can hurt these corners, and I think the run game should be popping for the Jaguars. Like the only reason, so Jamie was asking before about ETNs. Like the only reason I didn't just say ETN is because everybody who gets a carry for the Jaguars should be able to find some success in this game. I don't think Bigsby's very good, but Bigsby should be able to produce against the Panthers. Tootin definitely should be able to produce against the Panthers, but so should ETN. And I think ETN is the one of those three who's most likely to give consistent big play ability. So I could see ETN running for 150 on 12 carries in this game.
Oof.
And, but I also, I don't know if I can see him getting to 18 carries. So he that's the line we're always straddling with ETN. But I think the Jaguars probably spread the ball around in this one. And the long-term thing with Hunter for me is that when you're going against good teams with good receivers, someone might eventually ask Cohen, hey, what about that guy you spent the second overall pick? What about the guy you spent the fourth overall pick, next year's first rounder, and this year's second rounder on, who was such a good corner in college? Do you think we should maybe use him at corner? And once they do, that's just that's kind of like a Pandora's box situation for Hunter's fantasy investors, because then you create the optics of Hunter covering other receivers. And if those other receivers, let's say Jamar Chase in week 2, are making big catches and Hunter's on the sideline, all of a sudden Cohen might feel the need to move up Hunter on the defense depth chart. And when he does, he'll probably have to lower him a little bit in the offensive rotation. So I don't think the Panthers are prepared to hurt the Jaguars like that, but the Bengals will slap them up eventually, and teams other than them will also slap up those corners. And Liam Cohen might love Hunter at receiver, whatever amount, but when Monteric Brown is giving up game-winning touchdowns and Travis Hunter is on the bench, that's it. It'll never happen again.
Yeah, no, I can see it in my mind's eye now, Ted McMillan running into the end zone. And
I hope it's
Hunter
this game, because I do want to be right about this. And yeah, Ted McMillan can hurt those other corners. So it would be funny if the Jags somehow lose this game because they play Hunter too much on offense and not enough on defense.
Did get an interesting question on the Panthers side in regards to Jatavian Sanders. I like Jake Ferguson a little bit better than Sanders this week, but I did say that I understand the case for Jatavian Sanders because so much has just kind of opened up.
I love the player,
last couple of weeks,
but Ferguson's already good.
Yeah, that's my thing ultimately. But Thielen's gone, Coker's on IR. How much can they really just be all right, Hunter Renfrow?
Sanders is good. Yeah, he was putting up numbers. There were times where the Texas offense would go away from Xavier Worthy to feature Jatavian Sanders. And Sanders shouldn't have fallen to the 4th round. That was a steal for Carolina.
Yeah, so I think it comes down to, I feel like we've kind of...
This week, though, Ferguson, I mean, he should get something like 7 or 8 targets in this game, if only because I expect the Cowboys to have to throw so much.
I think while Coker's out, there is going to be a week where Sanders finishes as a tight end 1. And
I think Sanders is staying in. He doesn't need that slot rep specifically. As long as he's playing tight end, I think Sanders is going to get going. But yeah, it's the Panthers are not so rich that they can just leave good players on the bench, especially to put Tommy Tremble out there instead.
No, I like watching Tommy Tremble like knock people around, but for fantasy purposes, Sanders obviously a guy that needs to be in there, especially when they're kind of shorthanded on targets. In the meantime, before we get on over to our next game, which will be Bengals Browns, do you have a message from our friends over at Chalkboard? Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player's stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take out your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to 40 grand on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL, that's ROTONFL, to get $20 free with no deposit required. That's a pretty good deal. $20 just for signing up. Gotta like that. So shout out to our friends over at Chalkboard. AFC North battle here. Bengals, Browns, Bengals, 5.5-point favorites on the roads. Bengals, famously slow starters, although they kind of changed things up this preseason. They had the guys playing. The Browns are obviously projecting to be one of the worst teams in football this year. There's kind of a lot to get to from this game fantasy wise, though, because when Joe Flacco's back there at quarterback, like all of a sudden your pass catchers are a little bit more viable in Judy and David Njoku. And then additionally, like you just have a bad Bengals defense that I don't think is going to be appreciably better this year.
Yeah, I think the Browns cover this one, but it's not because I'm so concerned for the Bengals. It's more just with Flacco there, they can go over 40 pass attempts. Guys like Judy, Tillman, and Njoku absolutely should be problems for this Bengals defense. I'm not that concerned that the Browns haven't. I'm assuming Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson are not exactly a compelling backfield, but I don't care for the cover purposes in this game because it's the Flacco detail and thus those three pass catchers that makes the Browns capable of catching back up even when they fall behind. But the Bengals have to be a little careful on offense, in my opinion. Like their guard spots are kind of sketchy. I think Mason Graham's pretty good. Myles Garrett can overrule any offensive lineman he goes against. So certainly Orlando Brown, Mims, they might be good, but I don't think they particularly matter for Garrett. So the Bengals need to keep it together. Like Burrow can't go throwing 2 interceptions without putting them in some trouble. But I think the Bengals and Burrow will mostly keep it together, and like they should be well aware of like the offensive line concerns. They should be taking various measures to account for it. And I think this is the DFS smash spot though. This is the shootout of the week.
Yeah, I've also found myself doing some Flacco lineups with Chase coming around on the other side and Jerry Jeudy, having some fun with it. So I'm looking for offensive fireworks here as well. I think the Bengals, I think being sick of something and actually doing something about it can be two different things. But I do think that like this is the year that the Bengals don't lose in week 1. I think this Browns team will help that. Now, do they win by 5.5? That's another question. But I do think the Bengals, I don't think that they get off to like the disaster start that they have the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, that surprised me. So as much as the Browns stack is the cheap way in, I think you should go for some Bengals stacks too, because Burrow could just go to question mark on this one.
And one thing that I'm kind of holding out on a little bit here is I did feel like the market cooled a little bit too much on Mike Gesicki after they got Noah Fant. Over the
Gesicki's
summer.
A slot receiver is the thing, and that's good in the sense that Fant doesn't truly affect him, but it's bad in the sense that Gesicki can't scale up beyond whatever it is that in guys like Yoshivas and Burton are going to play too. So if Gesicki's a receiver and he's their wide receiver 3, but those other 2 receivers are also taking snaps, it's like it's one of those things. Like Gesicki is fine to play, and especially if you're going with a Burrow lineup, it's like you might as well or it gives you further reason anyway to consider Gesicki. But Gesicki's he's going to play like exactly 30 snaps, like no more, no less.
I just think ultimately, yes, that there are limitations to what he can do, and therefore, to how much he's going to play. But I think for like fantasy purposes, Gesicki has like a really good skill set.
For
I think he is
DFS
actually pretty good.
Like
Right.
like the Bengals stack that I refer to could very easily be done with Gesicki at tight end. I'd prefer Njoku if the money is there, but if Burrow goes for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, Gesicki could get 60 in 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, and so like Maddie was asking, like, is there a sleeper on the Bengals passing game? Like, I think people would gravitate to Yoshivas, but I actually think it's Gesicki.
It's Gesicki, Yoshivas, and Burton, I think, are all kind of in play, but also it's like the question of who of those stands out might be subject to who gets hurt. Like if Gesicki gets hurt, Yoshivas is playing like 800 snaps again.
Yeah.
If Yoshivas gets hurt, or if T. Higgins gets hurt, especially, then Burton steps into that boundary rep. So there's a few ways it could go, but I do think Gesicki, even though he's kind of like a sixth man sort of player to them, I do think he's locked in for about 30 snaps, and he should project for 5 to 6 targets on those.
Yeah, like a decent like per target per snap rate type of
yes,
thing.
Yeah.
Let's see here. On to the afternoon slate. We've got the Titans and the Broncos. Cam Ward making his debut out in Denver against a vaunted Broncos defense. I don't know about you, Mario, but Broncos were kind of routinely like getting into the later rounds of your redrafts. If anyone was jumping a defense, like kind of before conventionally you would take one, it was always the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, they were arguably as good as any defense last year, and then they added Jahdae Barron. So the Broncos defense should be filthy, and going to Mile High in September is generally it's like it's a death wish. It's really tough to deal, especially when the temperatures are hotter. It's tough to deal with that elevation, and teams have a way of showing up there and just getting gassed in the second quarter. So I do like the Broncos to cover. It's a really tough spot for Cam Ward, but I think unfortunately it's in Cam Ward's nature to maybe like dig the hole deeper in a game like this, because you're not gonna convince a guy like Cam Ward to like, hey, just let it go. We simply can't get a first down on this drive. We have to punt and regroup, and we'll just try to make up those 21 points that we're down on the next drive. Like, no, he's gonna take some risk that he knows is risky, because he's thinking like, we got to gain ground right now, and it's the reality will probably be you can't. All you can really do is kind of like run out the clock and lose by a touchdown. Like, that's your best case scenario. And I don't think Ward can, understandably, really accept that. So I think it's gonna be a rough game for him. And I think the Broncos should be able to win by like 14 or something.
So looking elsewhere in that offense, with the script likely being one of the catch-up variety, Pollard, I think you start him and you don't feel great about it. I think, is that about
Not
right?
great at all. Yeah, and it's in the case of Ridley, it's like we expect him to have bad efficiency. Like, the more you see Surtain, it's like Surtain wins pretty much every time. But especially if the Broncos are winning big, eventually backup corners will get some reps, and more importantly, Cam Ward's probably going to throw the ball at least 30 times in this game. And as long as the Titans are over that 30 pass attempt threshold, Ridley projects for at least 8 targets. So it's probably going to be inefficient for Ridley, but he could see something like 12 to 14 targets in that sense. Like, he's, I think, a pretty good bet to clear 70 yards.
So I think in like your shallower leagues, I could see this game getting so ugly that, maybe some people that are invested in Titans in your league just kind of jumping ship. I think over the course of the season, the Titans will find their way to respectability. So
yeah,
keep an eye on your waiver wire, because like people might overreact to how ugly it gets on Sunday. But I do think, along with you, that this one could get a little bit tough for Ward and the Titans. Then lastly, your read on this Broncos backfield. Are you feeling good about either Dobbins or Harvey as an RB2? Or are they more like flex guys?
I guess they're both flex guys, which is frustrating because they can burn you even in that capacity. But especially with the Broncos cutting Estime, I mean, like, they have no power running capacity at all at this point. I think Dobbins is therefore going to play quite a bit, and I certainly hope the guy stays healthy, but I have to wonder what Sean Payton is thinking. Keeping Jaleel McLaughlin, who in my opinion is useless, and then Tyler Beatty, who's basically like Jaleel McLaughlin 2, and both of them are just bad versions of RJ Harvey. So like I don't understand what Payton thinks he's doing with that depth chart, but Dobbins and Harvey are good in my opinion, and Dobbins, I think he's going to get like all the short yardage stuff, so knock on wood extremely, but he seems well set up here, and Harvey should have room to. Harvey doesn't need as many touches as Dobbins to do big damage, so I think they're both kind of startable here.
Yeah, and we could have kind of just like a tenderized and gassed defense, as we get into the fourth quarter of this game, with it being in Denver and with Denver likely, kind of beaten up on the Titans here. We've got next up, we've got the Niners going to Seattle to face the Seahawks. Niners 2.5-point favorites on the road. It looks like Juwan Jennings just got his deal accounted for, but do you have like the sort of same concern you did about a Brandon Ayuk type of thing? Not the injury, of course, but just kind of like slow out of the gate.
And I'm concerned that Juwan Jennings is not anywhere near as good as his numbers looked last year. I think he's a pretty good player, but to me, Juwan Jennings is a player who should be your third best receiver, not your best one. And I think the 49ers still win this game, but I think it's going to be lower scoring than anyone would like. And I think the 49ers do have to be careful. If Purdy has one of his interception days here, it could come at a high cost. But as long as Purdy doesn't turn it over, I think McCaffrey, Kittle, they can kind of in a like stripped down version of the 49ers offense do just enough, especially because the Seahawks offense is probably, in my opinion, garbage. Like I don't think the 49ers defense is particularly good, but the 49ers defense is good enough that I worry about Sam Darnold. So Smith and Jigba should catch like 14 passes or whatever for like 119 yards. So that's whatever it is. I don't think that the Seahawks have much going on offense otherwise but the run game. And I don't think, I don't know, the 49ers run defense could be pretty trash. Like they're starting Jordan Elliott at defensive tackle. That's crazy. How do you do that? That's really crazy. And if the Seahawks win, it will be because of the 49ers run defense.
Yeah, I will say that the Niners defense, it's going to take like your eyes some time to adjust to, because I do think it is going to be kind of like league average this year in a lot of respects. So that I am concerned about Sam Darnold long term this season, but this game I think it should be fine. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, over under just at 43.5, and I'm not even sure if you like knew that before you even said that this could be low scoring, but I could see that this one ultimately being a bit of a, we're seeing some rust on both sides, or some both teams kind of working through the kinks. Do like the Seattle run game and how that projects here. And then your Niners guys are your Niners guys. You know exactly what to do in the cases of McCaffrey, Kittle, and so on. Next one, maybe the crown jewel of the afternoon slate. We've got the Lions and the Packers. Packers feeling real cocky right now. They just got Micah Parsons, 1.5-point favorites against the Lions. What are we seeing here?
I'm picking the Lions to win this one. Admittedly, going to Lambeau is not a good thing for any team, and normally the Packers take care of business there. But I don't know, man. I really think that the Packers are putting a lot of pressure on themselves as like a Super Bowl contender, and I don't think they are. Like their corner rotation, not very good in my opinion. LaFleur, I think, will always kind of make things more complicated than they should be on offense. I don't understand why he doesn't just find his best players and put them on the field. I don't know why we have to worry about Malik Heath sending Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden to the bench. But as long as they're pulling stunts like that and putting on, taking Dontavian Wicks and his 5.5 yards per target on 60 targets instead of just giving 30 of those to Jaden Reed, those are things that push the Green Bay margins uncomfortably and are completely avoidable. And yet Matt LaFleur has refused to change his ways. So I don't think the Lions will do stupid things like that. I think the Lions find their best players and try to maximize their production. And I don't think it gets more complicated than that. And that's why I think they're the better team.
So, kind of jumping off that a little bit, the Lions famously lost Ben Johnson, and we get to kind of see the chicken and the egg, right? We get to
Yeah.
see, how much of the Lions' success the last couple of years were attributable to him versus, the personnel and like the culture that Dan Campbell at large has kind of instilled there in Detroit. So,
They got some issues, I got to say. Like their
okay.
offensive line is a question, and the Packers, even if they don't have Micah Parsons in this game, like you got to worry about guys like Devontae Wyatt if you're the Lions. So it's not a safe setting for the Lions whatsoever. But I do think that Green Bay run defense has some questions to answer without Kenny Clark. I thought the Green Bay run defense might have had some question to answer even with Kenny Clark there. So I am banking. I am assuming that the Lions are like the more talented team by a tiny little bit and better coached by a clear amount. But I think if Jordan Love can bounce back to what he was more so 2 years ago, then yeah, the Packers become really tough in that case. I'm just kind of skeptical that it'll happen. I'm skeptical that Love is very good at all, and making that Parsons trade, it's understandable. Players like him, generally, you got to try to get them if you can, but I don't think it fundamentally changes what Green Bay is. And I think fundamentally Detroit was always just the better team. But as much as the shootout of the week is the Browns and the Bengals, I think this is like the most interesting game of the week.
Yeah, I would agree with that, at least for the main slate on Sunday. And I guess lastly, I mean, you're starting Josh Jacobs, of course, but the Lions' run defense was phenomenal last year. Do you worry about kind of like a floor game for Jacobs at all?
I think with Jacobs, the extent to which you worry about him it's only in DFS really, like in season long, like you're just starting him because he is good and he should get a lot of usage. And that Packers offensive line could be pretty sick. Like if that's a way that if Green Bay wins this game, it'll be because guys like Aaron Banks are pushing around guys like Tyleik Williams just enough for the Packers offense to stay in a comfortable place and not expose Jordan Love too much. But yeah, I think if they need to have Jordan Love throw 35 passes, like those knuckleballs start showing up, those inexplicable fadeaway shots that he takes from like 15 yards back in the pocket, that kind of stuff pops up, and it's just bad when it does. So it's like the more they can make Jacobs the bigger part of the equation, the better for the Packers.
Yeah, not to like offend our RotoWire brethren, who by and large are Packers guys. Like, I feel like it's gotten awful hasty how quickly the trendiness of picking the Packers to win the Super Bowl has gotten, just because
I
they got
think
Micah
they'd sooner
Parsons.
finish last in the division,
Ooh,
honestly. I mean, it's a tough division. A good team is going to finish in fourth in that division. And it's not
exactly.
even really going to be their fault necessarily.
Yeah, their fourth place, it looks a lot different than the NFC Souths, for instance. Let's see here. We got Texans, Rams to round out the afternoon. Then we got a couple of primetime games. Um, I worry about the Texans in this spot. I'm worried about the Rams long term. I'm worried about Stafford holding up over the course of the season, but good to go here. So I feel like this sets up pretty nicely for the Rams. I feel like the total is a little bit low, although I suppose you can make the argument that the Rams defense got really good last year, kind of out of nowhere, really fast, with how good of a draft that they had, and the Texans totally new offensive line, basically nothing in the backfield here. So the Texans kind of remind me of like a poor man's version of the Cowboys on offense a little bit this year.
It could be, and we got to see what happens with Christian Kirk, who did not practice yesterday with hamstring, I
Oh
think it
boy.
was. But I actually like the Texans to win this game. It's
Oh,
not just like the Matt Stafford concern, although it is funny the Rams leaving him off the injury report. It's like, oh, I guess that means he's totally healthy. Have at it. Swing at the back. It's fine. It's ready. He can take it. Clearly not. And this is a bad defense to go against if you have a creaky back. And I don't know if they know it. Excuse me. I don't know if they know it for sure what Alaric Jackson's situation is going to be. We got Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Daryl Taylor as a third DE, Derek Hampton as a fourth. Like this is a ferocious pass rush, and I think the Texans defense is going to be pretty nasty this year in starting in this game. So I think, Nakua, Adams, they're fine. Kyron Williams, they're fine. But I think the Texans offensive line will be better than last year, even though it's a bunch of new guys. Like I'm so psyched that Ariante Ursary beat out Cam Robinson, who I don't like Cam Robinson. He's like my least favorite offensive lineman, even though he's not even that bad. But Ariante Ursary was one of my favorite like aesthetic offensive tackles. He's a total mauler. So him kicking Cam Robinson to the bench, I'm encouraged by, and I think the Texans are. They're really physical and they have some speed. They have some depth at the pass catcher group now. Even if Kirk is out, I think the Texans are going to cover. And actually, if I had to pick them, I would take them to win too.
Okay. All right. Strong. I like that. Let's see. I think the fantasy angles of this are relatively straightforward, but could you talk yourself into flexing either of the Texans running backs?
Being Marks and Chubb, I assume you mean. I would prefer not to start either, but if I am starting one, it would be Chubb. I know it's irrational, like I'm just being a Chubb homer, but I can't be any other way. Like I am a true believer. I'm an acolyte. I can't pretend that I'm not.
Hey, I respect that, and as someone who shares similar views on Nick Chubb, I agree. But yeah, hopefully week one you don't have to dabble in this in your redrafts. But if you absolutely have to, yeah, Chubb probably the correct answer there. Let's hit the Sunday nighter. Ravens Bills split action here. We've got the Bills 1.5 point favorites at BetMGM, but the Ravens 1.5 point favorites. I'm sorry, at ESPN Bet, and then the Ravens 1.5 point favorites at DraftKings. So that's interesting. To me, this game, if I can be so bold as to draw on a college football game from last week, Ohio State, Texas, big game. Everyone's going to be watching. How much bearing it actually has on what happens at the end of the season, where both these teams have kind of their eyes on the ultimate prize. Not that much. I mean, the head-to-head win, of course, is going to be important for seeding purposes potentially. The Bills have a tough schedule, but a lot of their tough games are at home. This one included, so they'd probably like to get started on the right foot. The Ravens obviously struggled up here in January last year. Did better against the Bills at their home barn during the regular season last year, also on a Sunday night game. I can't really make heads or tails of this one, Mario. You give us the take that we need.
I don't know. I don't want to pick either side. I think this could be one of those where it's like if they play 100 times, they both win 50 times. So I guess you have reason to pick the Bills, them being at home, but I don't know. I think the Bills' run defense is not really built to deal with an offense like the Ravens. And that's understandable enough. Most offenses don't at all resemble the Ravens. So it doesn't make any sense for the Bills to design their defense specifically to stop the Ravens. But excuse me, when you run a 4-3 defense with kind of like some wide nine kind of principles, some concessions are made on the interior, especially. It's like Ed Oliver, really good defensive tackle. Still, he's like 6'1", 285. So this is the team. The Ravens are the team against which Ed Oliver is probably the worst player he can be. So when you take a reason that the Bills defense is normally good, Ed Oliver, and if you turn him into a player who is not effective, even if it's just a very situational thing, it throws off a lot. And the Bills kind of count on getting pass rush opportunities. You might not get those if Derrick Henry's, averaging 5 yards a carry and doing whatever else. So this run defense issue for the Bills looms large despite their general strength as a roster and despite especially the strength of their offense. And the Baltimore defense on the other side, it's like they're a little thin in the defensive line. I'm surprised they haven't added somebody else in the defensive line. Like if Aeneas Peebles needs to play,
I was gonna say, what is the Aeneas Peoples love?
that would be a bad sign for the Ravens if Aeneas Peoples needs to play 30 plus snaps, even though I think he's kind of interesting. But if that defensive front holds, then the Ravens should be really tough to run on, as was the case, the past few years. So that, if it remains the case here, would put a lot of pressure on Josh Allen, which he is used to, and he's prepared to take that pressure and more. But it objectively makes Allen's job a little more difficult, even so. And if Jair Alexander is able to play in this game, like he was a limited practice yesterday, that Baltimore corner rotation is absolutely filthy. Like it's probably if Jair Alexander, if he's healthy, this is the filthiest corner rotation since probably like Troy Vincent, Bobby Taylor, Al Harris, or something like that.
Ooh.
So like it could get really bad for teams throwing the ball against the Ravens this year. And it's like, that's if the Bills fall to a disadvantage because of their run defense or like their inability to run the ball as well as the Ravens do on the other side, all of that pressure lands on Josh Allen and his ability to like throw to catch up, which again, like there's nobody else maybe that you'd rather have than Allen in that situation, but it's still categorically more difficult. The Ravens could lose this game, of course, but I don't think there's many scenarios where Lamar Jackson has to do as much lifting as Josh Allen does to win.
I think that's a really good way of summing it up. And I think on the Ravens secondary front, trading out a weak link like Brandon Stevens became down the stretch last year for someone like Jair Alexander or even Malachi Starks.
Huge. I mean, Jair has been hurt for like 5 years, but he is really good when he's out there. Wiggins, really good. Humphrey is probably the toughest slot corner you'll find in the league right now. Yep. So yeah, it's a lot Josh Allen will have really earned it if they're able to win this game, and especially if he needs to do like all the work, which I think it might be one of those days.
It does kind of suit him. Like there are a few quarterbacks that I could circle and say like, yeah, if he just does his thing, that you give him a chance, no matter if like everything else is going wrong around him. He just has that Superman ability, but does feel like the Ravens roster, like their defense in particular, like sets up reasonably well here. I didn't think the Bills offense was amazing against the Ravens defense last year, but it was good enough. And they were able to run on the Ravens a decent bit in the playoffs. So see how this one goes. I'm pretty nervous for this one, and that's all I'm going to say. And rounding it out, we've got the Vikings and the Bears. Some interesting stuff here. The Ben Johnson era begins in Chicago. Can they finally get some competent quarterback play? Can they finally kind of unlock Caleb Williams? You certainly have a ton of dudes around him. You've got DJ Moore still in his prime, Rome Odunze entering year 2, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, a better offensive line. We're out of excuses, I think, for Caleb Williams, at least we think. But the Vikings defense is not going anywhere. Like it's going to be pretty nasty, I think, in its own right. So your thoughts on this one, where the Vikings come into Chicago as 1.5 favorites?
Yeah, I think both teams are in danger in this one, and I think the under might be in play because that Minnesota defense is going to still be tough. And even if Ben Johnson gets the Chicago offense on track, even if Caleb Williams becomes this year what he should be, what he could be, it's more likely to happen in the second half of the year than in week 1. And I also think it's one of those things, like playing in Chicago is probably bad for the Chicago offense too. It's like nobody really likes to go to Chicago to play, but I don't think it helps the Bears offense either. So I'm not expecting Caleb Williams to do well in this game, and I'm not really going to hold it against him if he doesn't, because, and similarly, JJ McCarthy on the other side, I am not expecting a good game out of him at all. So I don't know who wins. I don't know what gives. Both defenses look tough, but to me, the Bears look a little bit, the corner injuries, if nothing else, like they're a little bit shorter handed. Also, I'm not convinced that the Bears have a great run defense. Minnesota's run defense I have no concerns about. So if the quarterbacks need to be bailed out, I think it's sooner Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones who bail out JJ McCarthy than DeAndre Swift bailing out Caleb Williams. So I'm taking the Vikings, but I think it might be an ugly game and something like 20-17 or something.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on the ugly game part of this. I think the Vikings are just gonna do a lot to kind of try to confuse Caleb Williams pre and post snap, and so many new pieces to work with in Williams' case, and the
offensive line. Yeah, it's like offensive lines take time to gel, and Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, that's 3 new starters, and they have to deal with a Minnesota defense that added Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave do not need to gel. They can just go inflict damage on their own.
Jonathan Allen, one of like the scariest college players I've ever seen. Like terrifying.
Yeah, they got Dallas Turner as a third rusher. It's like they got a lot of ammo on that defense.
It's crazy. So I like the Vikings here. Rounding it out from like the fantasy side, I do want to get your thoughts on the Minnesota side. I think redraft, you're probably not starting JJ McCarthy, but
No.
DFS purposes or otherwise, like what do you think of Adam Thielen this week and his reintroduction to this offense and how that changes the target distribution, especially while Jordan Addison is suspended?
I'm not really getting my hopes up for Thielen here just because I assume the Vikings want to hide McCarthy as it is. So to the extent to which they use Thielen, I'm assuming anyway, is one where they kind of go to him when they really need some safety, like where they really need we need some chain moving presence here, and we know Thielen can get us a couple of those plays, but if they need more than that from Thielen, I don't think they're going to get it, both because he's just got there, and I am worried about McCarthy in this game. So like I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson can go nuts. TJ Hawkinson, of course, can get a lot of targets. I'm not worried about Hawkinson. I should say McCarthy can have a bad game, and Jefferson and Hawkinson could be just fine. It's more like, can Thielen also have room to contribute? And in Chicago, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, probably too much too soon to ask of that. My best ball interests are he was like one of my favorite 14th round receivers, so that's kind of up
way
in
better on the
smoke,
Panthers than with the Vikings, but I do think Thielen is still good. It's just this is a game where it doesn't seem like a good environment for things to grow. It seems like it's going to be more so barren.
Yep. Like we said, low total in this one, sitting at 43.5, and we could see this one going not just under, but kind of finishing somewhere in the upper 30s. But
I think so.
That's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, big thanks to our friends over at Blue Wire, over at Fantasy Sports Knockout, over at Chalkboard. Mario, are you done? Are you happy to be done drafting?
Yeah. Now we wait for the dread of seeing how wrong we were, but at least we don't need to keep seeing the memes about who you must draft and who preseason clips about like, this guy's Derrick Henry, watch him run through a wide open hole against third stringers. That's like Derrick Henry. Like, we don't have to deal with that, at least for a while.
Yes, so there's beauty in that. I'm glad that the season is here. I will be singing a different tune when I have to do like 10 waiver wire things on Tuesday, but that type of pressure is a privilege. We love it. That's why we play the game. But that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Welcome to the 2025 season, everybody, and thanks for listening.